Hello, my name is Joris Kraak, and today I'd like to talk to you about an alternative release process for Julia packages that benefits both maintainers and users alike. Julia has a well-defined release process for packages, but in my opinion, this process is lacking some features to make it easy to consume packages, and I think I've found an alternative that improves upon this. So first, let's take a look at a typical release scenario. Imagine we are working on a typical Julia package. We'll have some work to do, and we'll do so on a dedicated feature branch, committing and documenting the changes as we go along in a format we think will be suitable for posterity. Once a feature is complete, we merge into main or master and consider whether a new release is warranted. If it is not, we simply repeat this cycle and continue with our next feature. If a release is warranted, we determine what the next semantic version should be, update the relevant files, and push to our code host. Finally, we invoke Julia Registrator to publish our package to the general registry. Now, I think there are some downsides to this approach. First off, semantic versioning is mainly intended for consumption by machines. It's very useful in the context of automated dependency updaters, such as Compat Helper, Renovate, or Dependabot. However, an updated version number only indicates that two versions of a piece of software are compatible. It does not indicate what has actually changed between releases. To figure that out, we have to go in and investigate, especially if we're trying to upgrade across a major version. This assessment is typically not straightforward, and it would help us if we would have some guidelines available to us to help us assess the impact of changes. Now, some might argue that Git's commit history is sufficient for this purpose. However, that history tends to be either too verbose or not verbose enough, depending on the effort a maintainer puts into their software. Keep in mind that not all changes to a codebase have an effect on its public-facing functionality. The same holds true for issues in pull or merge requests. Although some may be directly linked to the codebase and the changes therein, there's also potentially a lot of noise due to unrelated entries that do not affect the codebase. Second, determining what the next semantic version should be can be a bit of a hassle, especially for longer periods between releases. It may be necessary to perform some spelunking through the commit history to figure out what the semantic impact was of all changes. This issue is exacerbated in teams, which may even require a dedicated releaser to perform this specific job. Finally, and this may seem a bit pedantic, there is a cognitive load associated with the process of making a release, even if, as in this case, it only consists of 2 steps. This is especially true if releasing is an occasional activity, where this may be a thing to consider. So, can we get rid of these downsides? Can we make releasing a matter of merging? Can we automatically determine whether a new release is warranted? Determine the next semantic version number? Generate an overview of changes impacting the public API? Can we publish the release to the general registry automatically? The answer is, of course, yes, or I wouldn't be here talking to you. That is, provided we are willing to adjust our daily routine slightly. So let's take a look at an alternative release scenario. Again, imagine we are working on a typical Julia package. We'll have some work to do, and we'll do so on a dedicated feature branch. This time around, however, when committing our work, we take extra care to add some metadata to our commits, indicating the impact of the changes on the public API of our package. Again, once a feature is complete, we merge the branch into main or master. This time, however, due to our added metadata, an automated system is capable of assessing whether a new release is warranted. If it is, a fully automated release process can take care of the actual release. If it is not, we can just continue working on our next feature. Now, the semantic release framework is a piece of JavaScript tooling applicable to a wide array of languages that enables such a workflow. By adopting specific commit message formats, the framework is capable of automatically determining what version number a release should be assigned, generating changelogs and other artifacts, and releasing the result to a variety of package managers. By default, it doesn't support Julia, but it is easily extended to do so depending on a project's needs. Let's take a look at an example from a package that I maintain where I use the semantic release process to maintain its releases. This particular example uses the conventional commit style, which is just one of the many commit message formats just supported by the framework. This particular style finds its origins all the way back in the original AngularJS commits guidelines. So to indicate that a specific commit adds a feature to the package, the header of the commit starts with feat and optionally indicates the area of the package the change affects. This is followed by a short title, which is to be included in changelogs. The rest of the commit message contains a more detailed description of the change, why it was implemented, and could, for instance, include instructions on how to update existing code affected by the change. For a bug fix, the prefix simply becomes fix, but apart from that, the overall structure stays the same. And a variety of prefixes exists to make it easier to distinguish between different types of changes. Their impact on the assignment of a semantic version can optionally be configured. With this information available, the framework can automatically determine the version number for the next release and generate a changelog as shown here. This changelog provides a convenient overview of changes and links to the more detailed commit messages if the title indicates that a change is relevant to a consumer. So how do you set this up? Setting up a project for the semantic release framework is relatively straightforward. It's a matter of adding a configuration file to the repository. This configuration file specifies from which branch new releases should be created. It specifies some plugins to enable the framework to do its job. It indicates which files in the project, such as the project.toml file, need to be updated to include the updated version number. It enables the generation of a changelog, and then commits the updated files to the repository, tags and pushes the result to a code hosting service. And finally, in this case at least, creates a release on GitHub. With this file in place, creating a new release is a matter of invoking the semantic release framework. This particular configuration does not invoke Julia Registrator to publish the release to the general registry. However, this is easily resolved through a separate action acting upon the creation of the release commit. Depending on branch protection settings, this entire process can be run in CI on GitHub. This is done through two separate actions, one to trigger the semantic release framework and one to trigger Julia Registrator given the generated release commit. For a concrete example of a workflow using this setup, take a look at Kraak release workflow. On GitLab, the semantic release framework can also easily be run in a CI environment. The semantic release documentation provides some examples for setting this up. A separate plugin synonymous to the GitHub plugin is available in this case to create a release on GitHub itself. GitLab. Publication of the release to the general registry is a manual process, as I'm so far unaware of an API to trigger registrator.jl to create a merge request on the registry. I hope you found this information useful. Please reach out if you have any questions. I can be reached on Julia Slack or on Twitter.